Hi, Paul. Welcome to our Titans podcast. It is a pleasure to have you. My name is Humphrey Bowles, and I am CEO of SUPERHOG. And it is my pleasure to have Paul. I cannot pronounce your surname. Forgive me. I'm going to let you do that yourself. Coming from Los Angeles, who is a very important person in Guesty, who we all know is, maybe the premier property management system available today.
Yeah, thank you, Humphrey, very much for having me join you today on the Titans podcast. That last name is Zukauskas. Don't worry about it. No one can pronounce it unless you're from Lithuania specifically. So you're good on that one.
Paul, I have to say, you joined Guesty at a very opportune moment just before the pandemic hit. I mean, this last 24 months must have been quite a big ride for you. How did you get involved in Guesty?
Yeah. I think my story to Guesty is very unique because it was almost like kismet. I'd been working for SaaS companies previously. I was working for a small kind of project management software company, and they got acquired by a parent company. And that parent company kept acquiring more and more software companies throughout the United States. And they saw what I was doing from a customer success side. And so I was getting all these opportunities to move into these other tech companies and spaces and start building customer success teams. And then throughout that time, my wife and I were also managing a few short-term rentals. We had them primarily only on Airbnb because we weren't really professionals. We just had a guest house in their apartment. And so when Guesty approached me and they said they're building out this customer success practice in the United States, I just got really excited because it completely matched up with the experience that I had on building customer success teams and programs. And then also it incorporated this short-term rental aspect, something that I was very familiar with. It was the first time that I had an opportunity to work on a platform that I could understand directly from the user's experience. Because, although only 2 listings and not professional in any way, I still understood some of the massive amount of work that goes into actually running a short-term rental, between the cleanings and the operations and the messaging and the maintenance of the units and everything, the pricing. And so it just felt like a perfect opportunity. And that's kind of how I got in mid 2019, I believe.
Paul, I think that's fascinating. I'm a huge fan of people in the industry who use the industry, and as a super host myself, I know a little bit about what you're talking about. Tell me. I really want to know. Okay, how has your typical Guesty customer changed since the pandemic? Have we seen a shift? What are you guys hearing?
Yeah. So beyond, just the 2 wine bottle a day habit that everyone got, throughout the pandemic. No, I think that the largest shift in the customer that we've seen is it's kind of a cheeky answer, but this confidence that they now have of realizing that their business can sustain over a very difficult and hard time. I think, with Guesty, we serve a lot of kind of these SMB and mid-market type of accounts. And up to that point, you got the sense that a lot of our customer base was trying to professionalize their business, trying to see exactly how far they could take it, how sustainable it was going to be. And then once the pandemic hit, I think there was that initial shock, reservation, the great cancellation, as some of the PNCs, put it, right? And I think at that point, they had to make a decision, at least the people that are still with us, of was this a hobby for me or was this my profession? Was this my business? And at that moment, you saw this overwhelming bond among the PNC community of how do we batten down the hatches and survive the next few months of this pandemic. And then the tremendous growth that followed within those organizations afterwards. I think that they took the opportunity of a lower reservation volume and lower occupancy to refine their best practices on the operations side. They got leaner, they got more efficient, they got savvier, they tightened up their budgets and their spend. And that led to this gigantic kind of growth that we've seen out of our SMB and our mid-market accounts, in which because they were so tight on operations, they can go and they could focus on kind of acquiring new listings and kind of working relationships with owners, understanding what were the types of things that were really critical for owners in order to have that trust to sign over their listings to property management companies. And so I think that because of the pandemic, I think the entire customer base just got more professional and more ingrained and more optimized, if you will.
I love how, you are painting such a positive experience of the pandemic. I mean, I think there's a load of resilience out there, and for those that have come through it, and not everyone did, like, what you're saying is now the industry is in a much, much stronger, better place than it could possibly have been without the pandemic.
Exactly. I mean, if you think about it, even from the cleaning aspect, right? That was the initial shock of the pandemic. In order to get people into your units, you had to maintain certain cleaning standards. That was a great must-have adjustment where I think the space needed in order to accommodate this growing kind of wave of guests that were going to be trying out short-term rentals, right? And so by standardizing the cleaning practices and realizing that this isn't just a review score anymore. This is a serious matter. And we as a industry in the short-term rental space need to really focus and ensure safety on our cleaning standards. I think that was a great example of how everyone came together and could professionalize around one aspect of the business, thus creating a more reliable product for the overwhelming kind of, customer base that was coming to STR.
Yeah. Fascinating. So fascinating. Now, I've got to ask you, in terms of post-pandemic growth, can you, as Guesty, put a number on what that is looking like? So let's look at, just start off with booking revenue. Is booking revenue up? How much is it up by?
Yeah. So so when you're looking at booking revenue, I think that you could tie it to a number of different kind of data points, right? And so the first and foremost being ADR, the average daily rate of a listing. And what Guesty has seen is an increase in the average daily rate of listings, mainly tied to the demand. And so we repeatedly on our own kind of webinars and our own kind of marketing materials will illustrate how demand has just spiked in recent years over previous years. So if you're looking at like 2019 data versus 2021 data, and you look at specifically a season like the summer, we saw a 200% spike in reservations from summer 2019 to summer 2021. And now when we're looking at basically, what day is it today? It's like early March. So if we're looking at early March reservations for summer 2022 compared to early March reservations for summer 2021, we're already seeing a 90% increase. And that 90% is applicable across the globe. So it's not just specific to the Americas. We're seeing huge spikes even in Australia where they're booking for their winter season at this point, right? And so it's the same thing that Airbnb keeps saying, where the demand is growing. It is out there. More and more people have transitioned to short-term rentals and out of hotels, and there isn't enough inventory to accommodate all this. And that's why Airbnb is putting such a focus on acquiring hosts, because they see the demand. And as a result of that demand, we see just rising ADRs and rising RevPARs for our customer base.
How fascinating. So that's a really good point you raised about inventory and the lack of inventory. Why do PMCs need a PMS? And I guess I'm not looking for the answer for the the really professional businesses out there. I'm talking about the owners with or the slightly more transitional mom and pop going into professional. They're looking around, they know they need to do something, their inventory is growing, maybe they've got 10 to 15 units. Why do those guys need a PMS? And what type, why should they be considering Guesty?
It's a really important question to ask of why would you need a property management software? Because as you're growing, you're clear, if you don't have a property management software, you're clearly managing your inventory without it. And you're likely maybe on one channel, maybe two channels, maybe you're on a combination of Airbnb and VRBO. And that if you're really sophisticated, you've got a iCal connection between the two, and you can kind of block calendars and make sure that you're not double booking. But I think that as you're making this growth from a mom and pop type of, we've got a handful of listings to we're now professionalizing, the importance of a PMS is to really optimize your time, because very quickly you're going to hit this crestfall moment in which you can't be managing all of the communications across even two platforms. You can't be managing all of the calendars across two platforms, even if you have that iCal feed. You need to coordinate and organize your task management on cleanings and everything. And all of that starts to exponentially stack up on you. And unless you have this kind of single source of truth where you can see the entire landscape of your business in one area, it's going to be difficult for you to manage. Not to mention, a PMS is directly tied to optimizing your revenue, meaning that if you are able to actually distribute across multiple channels, you're going to increase your booking windows. And what I mean by booking windows is the amount of time between the confirmed reservation and the check-in date. And the larger your booking windows are, that equates to larger ADR because you feel more comfortable asking for higher daily rates further out. So 90 days out, you're probably at the highest price point that your listing is going to be. As you start closing in, within 30 days, within 21 days, within 7 days, that price point drops as you're trying to fill occupancy. So by distributing across multiple channels, you get more eyeballs onto your listings, thus increasing the likelihood that people are going to book within the optimum ADR for your listing, right? And so that's why it's important to distribute across multiple channels. And then from there, it's how do I save on ROI, right? If I do have coordinated task management, if I do have, dynamic pricing tools and damage waiver and all these various different elements, that means that I don't necessarily need to hire or increase the number of resources that work for my organization. And as we all know, throughout post-pandemic, we're seeing a lot of this, the great resignation now, where a lot of resources are moving around. And that costs employers a ton of money. You have to train people, you have to bring them on, you have to spend time interviewing. And so when you're evaluating a PMS, you have to ask yourself, how many resources is this going to actually save me in the long run? And so I think the reason you would go with the Guesty versus, a lot of the other offerings out there is the end-to-end kind of full, complete suite package that Guesty offers for your operations, for your distribution, for your financial elements, whether it's accounting or even something as simple as revenue reporting and owners portals and things like that. And so having it all in one place can really kind of simplify your tech stack while giving you the best-in-class product across all the various different elements of your business models.
Thanks, Paul. Now, this will mean nothing to anybody, but Charlie, that is the answer. My neighbor called Charlie Jackson has about 10 growing rapidly to 12 listings. And I've been trying to persuade him that he needs a PMS, and I'm going to play him this as the definitive answer as to why that is the case.
You'll have to follow up with me and let me know if it actually, if that answer convinced him to move over or not.
Yeah, well, I'll play it to him and then tell him to contact the customer success team at Guesty for his free trial. Talk to me about customer success. It can mean so much, and it can also mean, hello, I'm afraid due to COVID that no one is available to talk to you. What does customer success mean to Guesty?
Yeah, I think really what we're trying to do with our customer success department is that we're trying to be a little bit more proactive with our customer base. We want to add that additional value where, Guesty has over, 100 plus engineers globally. And so what that means is that we're constantly releasing enhancements on our product. And it's difficult for a customer to stay on top of all the various different enhancements and changes that are coming. And so one of the main kind of core pillars of our CSM department is to really create awareness around all the product enhancements, knowing your company's configuration and knowing which product enhancements are really relevant for you versus what may be on the outskirts of your use case. And so by driving kind of value in improving your configuration, your experience consistently in Guesty, we hope to build a partnership, long-term kind of, partnership with our accounts, and then gain that trust in which we could make operational enhancement kind of suggestions for your business, or tell you about best practices that we've learned globally on how to add additional listings or create multi-units, or how to grow into, luxury listings or alternative accommodations, or, wherever your business may go, we'll likely have that global experience to kind of help you along the way to eliminate some of those errors that you may make in the growth of your business. And so that's what we strive for as CSM.
Well, I think that is a bit of a killer mix by the sounds of things. People who can interpret data and understand data, and then people who can talk to real human beings on the other end. Clearly, your role of Guesty VP of Customer Success is a pretty big deal and a pretty big role within Guesty. What's the most rewarding thing for you about your role at the moment, and what you get to do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I think it's kind of what I just alluded to, which is watching the massive growth of our customer base. As I said earlier, we see so much listing growth from our SMB and mid-market customers, and to know that as CSMs that we play a small part in that, of enhancing configurations, offering best practices, and kind of seeing these accounts really start to, just gain momentum and perfect their craft of acquiring listings, servicing customers or guests, just to be a part of that entire ecosystem while the SDR industry is seeing this exponential growth has just been really exciting and very rewarding.
And Paul, do you guys have a target that you're aiming for? Do you have a target number of listings or PMCs that you guys are hoping to provide with your tech?
No, I don't think that there's no finite number that we're targeting. It's more so we're just trying to create a product line that can service the entire space. So it doesn't matter if you're necessarily a 1 to 3 or 4 lister. We now offer Guesty for Host, which is a light mobile first version for PMCs who only have a handful of listings. Or if you are growing from 5 to the multiple thousands of listings, Guesty for Pros is able to accommodate kind of your business needs there. And so there really isn't a magic number. I think it's, making sure that we find customers where Guesty is the perfect fit, and figuring out which one of our product modules is the right fit for that customer, and then growing them within that module or within that software service.
I think it's really admirable and brilliant that you guys are providing tools for the little guys and for the professionals. I think it's a really unique offering that you're doing. It's something that, at SUPERHOG we really care about as well. We really want people to have access to the best possible tools, no matter whether it's a single listing or 5,000 listings. That is a great segue into partnerships. Can you explain why partnerships like SUPERHOG and Guesty are really beneficial for property management companies?
Yeah. We used to have a general manager in the Americas that used to say that property management companies are like snowflakes. They're all unique. And what he would speak to regarding that is the fact that I have talked to hundreds, if not thousands, of property management companies, and everybody has a different type of tech stack, right? And so although Guesty wants to offer an end-to-end solution, we understand that the specific needs of your geo or of your specific business may require certain nuanced functionality. And so Guesty has taken it upon itself to really offer the largest marketplace within the PNC space. And so we've got over 100 software partners plugged into our API at Guesty. And what this allows people to do is really pick and choose and kind of build their own tech stack. And SUPERHOG is one of those brilliant partners on our marketplace, where if someone's looking for that added kind of damage waiver, if it's, I know that offering damage waiver across multiple different geos can be difficult. And that's where the marketplace really steps in, where SUPERHOG can accommodate certain requests in certain geos where other partners can't, right? And so that's why we need to have this really robust kind of marketplace that can serve a global community and the tech needs of that community.
Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge for new tech businesses is to be able to be global from day one. I think it's a real, within short-term rentals. I think that's the biggest challenge businesses face at the moment. Paul, I would love to continue this for the rest of the day, but we're going to need to wrap up soon. Before we do though, what travel patterns, what trends are you guys seeing at the moment? Can you give me your predictions for 2022?
Yeah. So what we see coming down the line is the same kind of narrative that we've heard now since the start of the pandemic, which is the remote workforce is no longer tied to leases, to mortgages. They are mobile and they're willing to have extended stays in short-term rentals. And we're seeing a lot of corporate kind of travel moving in this direction too, where large corporations are going to be offering 30+ day stay services as part of their employment packages. And so we're seeing the length of stay of the average guest start to creep up and start to expand. And so we see this digital nomad really capturing more and more market share. I think, we saw something, Airbnb reported a 30% increase, I think, in length of stay. And that's directly tied to it was a 30% increase in 30+ day stays is what Airbnb reported in 2021. And so we believe that trend to continue. Also, what we think is that corporate travel will start to come back a little bit. It's basically been non-existent in 2020 and 2021. And so I think now, people are starting to realize that they're going to get out of their home offices. They're going to start trying to get in front of their customer base, start traveling for work again. And so we anticipate a rise in corporate travel as well in 2022.
Fantastic. Thank you. Well, Paul, thank you for your time. I feel we've gone from the great cancellation to the great resignation with a few meanders en route. For all you snowflakes out there, and I'm not meaning Generation Z, for all you PMCs with your difficulties, your different tech stacks, I know that Guesty will have a product which will be certainly worth looking into. Paul, what's the right way for them to get in touch with your team?
Yeah, obviously you can navigate to Guesty's domain, guesty.com. There you can find a whole slew of information. You could also contact me via LinkedIn, Paul Zukauskas. And then my email is paul@guesty.com. Happy to talk to anybody who wants to talk.
I'm so delighted that your email is paul@guesty.com. I felt we were going to have to spend the next 5 minutes explaining how to spell Zukauskas. That was a bad effort.
No, you did well. That was great.
Everyone, thank you so much for listening. It's been a pleasure, Paul. Thank you, and look forward to meeting you this year out in Vegas.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time as well, Humphrey.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.